The evening was cold, with rain pouring outside. A small diner on the edge of town was warm and full of life. The smell of coffee and fresh fries filled the air. People sat in booths talking and laughing, happy to be away from the storm outside. Door opened, and a man walked in. He looked like he had been walking for miles in the rain. His jacket was wet, his shoes muddy, and his face tired. He didn't say anything as he stood near the entrance, water dripping from his clothes. Some customers glanced at him for a second, then looked away. No one wanted to stare, but everyone saw he didn't look like someone with money. His hands were rough, his eyes had dark circles, and he looked like he hadn't slept well in days. The waiters were busy taking orders. The manager was counting the day's money behind the counter. No one asked the man if he needed anything. He slowly walked to an empty table in the corner and sat down. He didn't open a menu. He didn't call a waiter. He just sat there quietly. Looking down at his hands, at the counter stood a young cashier. She had been watching him since he walked in. Something about him made her pause. He didn't look dangerous. He just looked tired. She picked up a menu and went to his table. "Do you want to order something?" she asked softly. The man hesitated. His voice was low when he spoke. I don't have enough money," he said, almost like he was ashamed. The cashier looked at him for a moment. The diner was noisy around them, people laughing, plates clinking, but at that moment, it felt quiet near their table. She smiled a little. "Are you hungry?" she asked. The man nodded slowly, like it was hard for him to admit. The cashier thought for a second. Then she said, "Wait here." She went back to the counter. She opened her small wallet and pulled out a few bills. It wasn't much, maybe the tip she had earned during the day. She walked to the kitchen and told the cook, "1 hot meal. Put it on my bill." The cook raised his eyebrows but didn't ask questions. A few minutes later, the cashier returned to the man's table with a steaming plate of food and a cup of coffee. "Here you go," she said. "Eat while it's hot." The man looked at the food, then at her. I can't pay you," he said softly. "It's okay," she replied. "Just eat." For a moment, he didn't move, like he couldn't believe someone was helping him. Then slowly, he picked up the spoon and began to eat. The cashier walked back to the counter, pretending to check receipts, but she kept looking at him from the corner of her eye. He ate slowly, carefully, like he wanted the food to last as long as possible. Some customers noticed what was happening. 2 women at a nearby table whispered to each other. One of them shook her head like she didn't agree with giving free food to strangers. The manager also noticed. He walked to the cashier and said in a low voice, "Did you pay for that yourself?" "Yes," she said simply. The manager frowned but didn't say anything else. Meanwhile, the man at the table kept eating. He didn't look up. He didn't talk to anyone. He just ate quietly, like this was the first warm meal he'd had in days. Finished, he put the spoon down and sat there for a moment. Then he stood up and walked to the counter where the cashier was standing. "Thank you," he said quietly. His voice shook a little. "I don't know how to repay you." The cashier just smiled. "It's fine," she said. "Stay warm out there." The man nodded. He looked like he wanted to say more but couldn't find the words. Then he walked out into the rainy night, leaving the diner as quietly as he had come. The door closed behind him, and the sound of the rain filled the silence for a moment. The cashier went back to work like nothing had happened. But in her heart, she felt something. She didn't know who the man was or what his story might be. All she knew was that he had been hungry, and now he wasn't. She didn't know that this small act of kindness was about to change her life in ways she could never imagine. The rain had stopped by the next day, but the small diner was as busy as ever. People came in for breakfast, carrying the smell of wet streets and cold wind on their clothes. The bell on the door kept ringing as customers entered, ordering hot coffee and pancakes to start their day. The cashier worked behind the counter. As usual, giving change with a smile, asking about people's day, and calling out orders. She looked the same as always, but inside, she kept thinking about the man from last night. She remembered how he had looked at the food, like it was the best thing that had happened to him in a long time. She remembered how quietly he had thanked her before leaving. She wondered if he had a place to sleep or if he was still out in the cold somewhere. The manager, however, didn't seem too happy about what had happened. As he counted the money in the register, he said in a low voice, "Next time, ask before you give away free food. We run a business, not a charity." The cashier didn't argue. She just nodded, but in her heart, she felt she had done the right thing. Money was important, yes, but no one deserved to be hungry on a rainy night. The day went on. Orders came and went. The smell of fries, coffee, and toasted bread filled the air again. But once in a while, the cashier's eyes drifted toward the door, half expecting the man to walk in again. He did in single quotes us the same way. The regular customers came and left. The busy manager kept counting money, and the waiters moved quickly from table to table, carrying plates. Some customers had seen what happened that night. A few whispered about it when they thought the cashier couldn't hear. "She paid for his meal herself," one man said. "Yes," a woman replied. "I don't know why. He looked like trouble to me." "Kind heart, maybe," someone else said. The cashier didn't let their words bother her. She didn't help him for attention or praise. She helped because it was the right thing to do. One evening, a group of customers came in and started talking loudly about what had happened. That stranger probably took advantage of her kindness. One man said, "People like him never pay you back," another agreed. "She's too soft-hearted," a woman added. The cashier heard them but said nothing. Instead, she kept taking orders, her face calm. Deep down, though, she wondered, would she ever see that man again? Did he even remember her? The manager brought it up again after closing time. "Listen," he said, locking the cash drawer. "You can't just feed strangers like that. What if everyone starts coming here expecting free food? We can't afford that." The cashier wiped the counter slowly. He looked like he hadn't eaten in days, she said softly. "I couldn't just stand there and do nothing." The manager sighed. "I get it. But next time, at least tell me first." She nodded again, but inside she thought, if it happened again, I'd probably do the same thing. A week went by. The memory of the stranger slowly faded from everyone's minds except hers. Then one afternoon, a delivery boy came in with a large box. "This for the cashier," he said, pointing at her. She looked surprised. "Me?" The box was filled with fresh flowers. A small card was attached that read, "Thank you for your kindness." A grateful stranger. The cashier smiled as she read the card. Some customers saw it and started whispering again, but this time, their voices were different. Maybe he wasn't so bad after all. Looks like he appreciated it. Who sends flowers for just one meal? The manager raised his eyebrows but said nothing this time. The cashier placed the flowers by the counter. Their bright colors filled the diner with warmth. But this was only the beginning, because a week later, the door of the diner would open again, and the same man would walk in. But this time he wouldn't look like a poor stranger. He would come back with a secret no one expected. A secret that would change everything. And the cashier, who had quietly helped him without expecting anything in return, was about to find out who he really was. The next week began just like any other. The diner buzzed with life as people came in for breakfast and lunch, the sound of clinking dishes mixing with the chatter of regular customers. The smell of fresh coffee drifted through the air. But in one corner, two women whispered while sipping their tea. "Did you hear?" one said softly. "The stranger who came last week, the one she gave food to, he sent flowers to the cashier." "Really?" the other replied, eyes widening. "For one meal? That's unexpected." Their voices were low, but the cashier heard them as she wiped down the counter. She said nothing, but a small smile touched her lips. The flowers had been sitting on the counter all week. Bright and fresh, they brought warmth to the little diner, like a silent reminder that one small act of kindness could mean so much to someone. The manager didn't say much either. He just looked at the flowers every time he walked past the counter, a thoughtful expression on his face. Maybe, just maybe, he was starting to realize it hadn't been such a bad idea after all. But the customers kept talking. Some said the stranger was probably just grateful. Others said he might have a bigger story no one knew about. A few even joked, wondering if he was secretly rich. The cashier didn't listen to the gossip. She just kept doing her job, serving customers, giving change, and greeting everyone with her usual smile. But deep down, she couldn't help but wonder, where was he now? Would he ever come back? That question was answered sooner than anyone expected. One afternoon, the bell above the door rang. A man walked in. At first, no one recognized him. He was dressed in a neat suit, his hair combed, shoes polished. He looked confident, nothing like the tired, wet stranger who had walked in on that rainy night. But when he smiled at the cashier, she froze. It was him. The customers started whispering again, turning in their seats to get a better look. The man walked straight to the counter. "Hello," he said warmly. "I hope you remember me." The cashier nodded slowly. "You're the man from that night?" "Yes," he said with a smile. "And I came back because I owe you more than just flowers." The diner grew quiet. Even the manager stopped what he was doing. The man looked around the room, then back at the cashier. "You see," he said, "I came here that night for a reason. I wanted to see how things really worked when no one knew who I was." The cashier frowned slightly, unsure what he meant. The man took a deep breath. "I'm the new owner of this diner. I bought it last month." Gasps filled the room. The customers looked at each other in shock. The manager's mouth actually dropped open. The man continued, his voice steady but warm. "I came here that night dressed like a regular customer, maybe even someone down on his luck, because I wanted to see what kind of people worked here, who was kind when no one was watching, who treated strangers with respect." His eyes turned to the cashier. "And you," he said softly, "were the only one who showed real kindness." The cashier stood frozen, not knowing what to say. The customer started whispering again. "She helped him without knowing who he was? That's incredible. She didn't ask for anything in return." The manager cleared his throat nervously, clearly embarrassed. He had scolded her for giving away free food, and now the truth made him shift uncomfortably on his feet. But the man wasn't done yet. "That night, you didn't know who I was," he said, looking at the cashier. "You didn't know if I could pay you back, but you helped me anyway. That kind of kindness, it's rare, and it deserves to be rewarded." The cashier felt her heart beating fast. She hadn't done it for a reward. She hadn't expected anything. But now, everyone in the diner was watching, waiting to see what he would do next. He smiled again, a kind, genuine smile. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone," he said, glancing around the diner. "I just want everyone to know that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can mean the world to someone else." The cashier nodded slowly, still processing everything. The man leaned closer to her. "And this is only the beginning," he said softly. "Next time, I'll tell you what I have planned for you." With that, he turned and walked toward the door, leaving the diner in complete silence. Everyone stared at the cashier. Some looked amazed, others a little guilty for how they had judged her before. The manager finally spoke, his voice low. "Looks like you did the right thing after all." The cashier didn't answer. She was still standing there, her hands trembling slightly, wondering what he meant by the beginning. Because whatever he had planned next, it was going to change everything. The next day, the diner was buzzing with excitement. Everyone was talking about the man in the suit. The stranger who turned out to be the new owner. Customers whispered about it while eating breakfast. Did you see him? He looked so different. And to think, she helped him when nobody else did. Wonder what he's going to do next. Even the regulars who usually just read their newspapers and sipped their coffee were talking about it now. The cashier, though, said nothing. She worked quietly as usual, her thoughts racing. What did he mean when he said, "This is only the beginning"? She had helped him without expecting anything. She didn't do it for praise, and definitely not for money. She had done it because her heart wouldn't let her see someone hungry and cold. But now the whole diner was waiting to see what he would do next. That afternoon, just as the lunch rush was slowing down, the bell above the door rang again. He was back. This time he wasn't alone. Two men in business clothes walked in with him, carrying folders and a large envelope. The entire diner grew quiet again. Customers turned to watch. The manager straightened his tie nervously, clearly feeling awkward after scolding the cashier. About the free meal just a week ago, the man in the suit, no longer a stranger, walked straight to the counter where the cashier stood. He smiled warmly. "Do you have a minute?" he asked. She nodded, unsure what to expect. The man placed the large envelope on the counter. "I told you yesterday this was only the beginning," he said softly, so everyone had to lean in to hear. The cashier glanced at the envelope, then at him. "What is this?" He smiled. "A thank you," he said simply. Slowly he opened the envelope and pulled out a paper. It was a certificate of promotion with her name on it. "You are the new assistant manager of this diner," he announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Your kindness showed me you have a good heart. This place needs people like you running it." The cashier's mouth fell open. The customers started clapping. Even the cook peeked out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron, grinning from ear to ear. But the man wasn't finished. He handed her another envelope. This one was smaller, thicker. She opened it slowly and gasped. Inside was a check, with a number so big it made her hands shake. "This is a bonus," he explained, "for what you did that night. You didn't just feed a stranger. You reminded me of the kind of people I want working for me. People who care." The cashier blinked back tears. She didn't know what to say. The man smiled gently. "You didn't ask for anything. That's why you deserve everything." The manager stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Sir, I didn't realize The man held up a hand. "You run this place well," he said calmly. "But sometimes running a business isn't just about money. It's about people. It's about kindness. Remember that." The manager nodded, clearly embarrassed. The customers clapped again, louder this time. Some even stood up, cheering. The cashier still couldn't speak. She looked down at the check in her hand, then at the man who had once been a stranger eating a quiet meal in the corner. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. He smiled. "Just keep being who you are," he said softly. "That's enough." Then he turned to leave but paused at the door. "Oh," he added, "one more thing. Starting next month, you'll be helping me manage all 3 of my diners in this city. I think you'll do great." The diner went silent for a moment before exploding into cheers. The cashier covered her mouth with her hands, tears in her eyes. She had gone from giving away one simple meal to being promoted, rewarded, and trusted with more responsibility than she ever imagined. The man left, the door closing behind him, but the diner stayed alive with excitement for the rest of the day. People kept congratulating the cashier. Some admitted they had judged her too quickly. Others said they wished they had done what she did. The manager looked like he had learned an important lesson. Kindness could be worth more than money sometimes. But the cashier? She just stood there in quiet disbelief, holding the check in her hand, feeling like her whole life had changed in a single moment. And yet, the story wasn't over, because the man had one more surprise waiting for her. Something bigger than money. Something that would make the entire town talk for weeks to come. The next few days felt like a dream for the cashier. People kept stopping by the diner just to congratulate her. Customers who barely noticed her before now smiled when they came in, asking, "So how does it feel to be the assistant manager?" She would smile back shyly, saying she was still getting used to it. Deep inside, she still couldn't believe everything had happened so fast. One night, she sat on her bed at home, staring at the check the man had given her. It was more money than she had ever seen in one place before. Her bills, the rent, even the small loan she had taken to help her younger brother, everything could finally be paid off, all because of one simple act of kindness. But she also remembered what the man had said, "This is only the beginning." She wondered what he meant. What more could possibly happen? The answer came 3 days later. It was a Saturday afternoon. The diner was busy as usual when a group of people walked in wearing suits. They carried cameras, lights, and microphones. Customers looked confused. The manager looked nervous. Then the man in the suit, the new owner, the stranger who had started it all, walked in behind them. Smiling as always, the cameras turned toward him as he shook hands with the manager, the cook, and finally the cashier. "Today," he announced, "we're filming something special." The customers leaned in, eager to hear more. The man turned to the cashier. "Do you remember the night you gave me food when no one else did?" She nodded slowly. "I was testing this place," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I wanted to see what kind of people worked here before I took over. And you showed kindness when you didn't have to. You reminded me there is goodness in this world. And that's why I'm here again, because it's time the world knows your story." The cameras rolled as he spoke. The cashier stood frozen, unsure what to say. The man continued, "I told the local news about you. They're here to share what you did with the whole town. People need to see that kindness still exists." The diner erupted in applause. Customers cheered, some even wiping their eyes. The manager, who had once scolded her, now clapped the loudest, his face red but smiling. The cameras filmed everything, the cashier's shy smile, the customers cheering, the moment she realized the whole world was about to hear her story. The man wasn't finished yet. He handed her another envelope. "And one more thing," he said with a smile. "This is a scholarship for your younger brother. I heard you were helping him with school. Now he won't have to worry about money anymore." The cashier's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside was enough money to cover his education completely. Her eyes filled with tears. The cameras caught every moment, the shock on her face, the way she covered her mouth with her hand, the way customers stood up to clap again. Man spoke softly so only she could hear. "You gave when you had little. Now it's time for you to receive when you need it most." She looked up at him, her voice shaking. "I don't know how to thank you," he smiled kindly. "Just keep being the person you are. That's all the thanks I need." The news team filmed interviews with the cashier, the customers, even the cook in the back who said he had never seen anything like this in his life. By the time they left, the diner felt different, brighter, warmer. The customers left talking about what they had just seen. Some promised to come back more often. Others said they would tell everyone they knew about the young cashier whose kindness had changed everything. That night, as the diner closed, the cashier stood alone for a moment, looking at the flowers on the counter, the promotion certificate on the wall, and the scholarship envelope in her hand. One small act. That's all it had taken. One simple meal on a rainy night had turned into events that changed her life, her brother's future, and even the way people in town thought about kindness. Weeks later, the story aired on local TV. People all over the town saw it. Strangers came to the diner just to meet her. Some brought flowers. Others brought letters saying her story had inspired them to help someone too. The cashier stayed humble through it all. She still worked behind the counter with the same smile. She still greeted everyone the same way. But now, whenever someone asked her about that night, She would smile softly and say, "Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness comes back to you in ways you never expect." And the man who had once been just a hungry stranger? He became a close friend and a mentor, always reminding her that goodness, when shared, spreads farther than anyone can imagine. This ended the story, but not the lesson. Because everyone who heard it walked away thinking the same thing. Maybe it's time I showed a little kindness too.